Good morning. This is my second call of the day. The first call was pretty bad. I was, I think, literally in the process of waking up for about the first half hour. So you guys hopefully won't have to suffer near as much.
Good morning,
Lee,
Lee.
I noticed something new back to you.
Hey. Yeah, there's a sign of the box that is hopefully being sent today your way is well, I don't have any laying around, otherwise I would spoil the surprise. I guess I'll tell you that these pieces of paper so there's pieces of paper that there's a homemade process by which we go through and create buttons that you can put on layer 5 buttons. So you'll see some. They're kind of neat. Yeah. Good. Okay.
So they are people made or
Yeah, I really want to show a video about it. I really want for us to have a video about this, but and we took one a little while ago, and we were going to kind of work it into a small video clip. Essentially, my wife and our kids have the ability to make buttons. They have a small like button press machine. So we got the logo, kind of designed these circles to go into buttons. We like punch them out using this large hole punch, and then go over to this small button making machine where you put together some plastic. Anyway, you go through this process and you make buttons. And so, yeah, there's a video of them doing that. This was like, I don't know, this was a long time ago. Anyway, they've made quite a few. We've taken them to KubeCon and the like. And it's kind of neat because they're originals and they're sort of homemade. So we'll have to share. While we're doing meeting minutes, I'll try to find an example of that video because it's kind of neat, kind of cool. Wow. Okay, where are we? Meeting minutes. Yes. Good. VJ, good morning. I missed getting to say good morning to you a second ago.
Good morning, Lee. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. There's a couple of messages, I think, from you that I haven't done a good job of reading through just yet, or go look at the Prometheus scan REST API that and then go take that, whatever, if there's a value present, go load it into this UI. So, well, yes, if the user hasn't already selected a preference, because once they've selected the one that they want to use, even though ongoing there may be 3 in the environment, that doesn't mean that we want to override their preference just because we've discovered a couple of other ones. Like there's a few gotchas in here that should be written down, like should be well articulated so that. And it's kind of like what I was talking about before with when Istio gets laid down in the first place, the way that we deploy it, even though there's a Promethea and Grafana instance in the environment now, that doesn't mean that Meshery can actually get to them. Meshery can if you deploy Meshery in cluster, like if you're deploying Meshery inside of Kubernetes. And anyway, just the fact that I just said that is like, that's a whole nother, there's a lot of scenarios to this that I don't think is really fair to say, to not have had that stuff written down and then ask you to go. Yeah. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is I think you're doing a great job having gone through and understanding the various aspects of it without much of a good description. So I'm taking an action item to go grab the conversation that we had and get an actual spec kind of going. Because part of what I think will happen, VJ, is that you'll be successful with facilitating the 80% use case, I think, or but that later, as we go to add the concept and the kind of the construct of an environment and let people name their environments or have multiple connections to multiple different Kubernetes clusters at the same time, well, there are ramifications then to what you would have done here that need to be taken into context. And so in part, I think we're only looking to achieve part of the goal here, acknowledging that, like, if you achieved all of the edge cases, that that might not be worth it, because there would be some rework later when we go to add environments. And so,
Okay.
yeah, I think you're tracking well. I think that's in part why when I saw your name on the list today, I was like, oh boy, we've got an unfinished, or there's a set of conversations that we didn't walk through, and we should.
Okay.
And yeah, having them written down is probably that's nice. That's good. Yeah, some of it's a little bit uncomfortable, though, like when I think about how it would have to be implemented today, because I don't know that we have all the right framework in place for differentiating between a Grafana endpoint that's been discovered and one that's been selected and persisted as the user's preference. And then more than that, persisted as the user's preference for that particular environment. And so, yeah, I think that the project itself is a little bit under-equipped at the moment to address all the things that you might need to address if you were really, really flushing this out. So.
Right. I think the endpoint will have to be qualified with other attributes. But anyway, that's fine. You will write it down so I can.
Yeah, very good. Okay. And when I write it down, it'll be a collaborative, or rather, it'll be hopefully me getting a structure there that makes some sense, but for you to augment or for you to change if it needs to.
Okay.
Okay, very, very good. Well, and VJ, just last thought there is that I'm excited about that one because there's a lot of power behind the fact that we have a lot of metrics charts and panels to display inside of Meshery, and very, very few people actually make it that far in Meshery because of the lack of kind of auto discovery happening. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, let me do this if I can, given that we've got about eight minutes or so left. Let me say that there's one topic we wanted to get to today that I think that we talked about in the past a number of times. As a matter of fact, when we started this working group, I think it was at the very top of the list of the first priority. I think one of the first priorities was like versioning Meshery server. Along with that was this notion of establishing, once we're able to version Meshery, we can then establish release channels. And I think to establish this stable release channel is pretty straightforward. So, Lido, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I think this is, actually, maybe I should not say any. Lidor, what questions do you have, or how have you interpreted this, and where do you think?
Like, first, if we should call it like instead of stable latest, or let's keep it like latest, and then stable will be the last of the release, I guess. I try to see how others do it, like to align with the requirements also of other repos that I saw. So another thing that I'm a bit confused is about the age and stable. So both of them a bit the same, but age is without testing, I think, and other stuff. So how should I tackle it with age and stable? And I want it, at least a bit to agree about the convention, naming convention or naming release convention.
Briefly, yeah, I think in some respects, the proposal is to potentially not use the actual latest tag, like the one all by itself, but is to potentially use the latest tag in combination with like stable latest, edge latest. And hopefully, as I say this next part, that'll be explained that when we execute our workflows, that we will produce an edge release the majority of the time. That basically almost any time that we're merging to master, we would be producing an edge release, and that we would be publishing an edge latest basically every time that we merge to master. But that a smaller percentage of the time we would be producing a stable release when merging to master and a release tag is present. Then that's what signifies the notion that it's a stable release. And so, which is not far removed from what we're doing today. Today, anytime you merge to master, we're pushing the code out and making it available. We're not actually necessarily versioning it though. And so, as we look to switch to this type of a logic, we will begin. We'll begin to have much more control over the versions that are released and making sure that people are not receiving things that aren't well tested. It is good to,
yeah. So should I go, I mean, to think about like to change the methodology of the release that we do as today, like stable latest, stable, and the release version, like as you mentioned?
Yeah, yep. I think we're ready to execute on the logic for stable, like you're saying, for stable latest for.
Yeah.
I think that Kush, if you're on, can you remind me? I thought we wanted to hold off on edge for a moment because there was another consideration in there, but that might not be the case. Oh, I know why. Because yeah, as we go to do this, that there's some updates that need to happen within Meshery CTL. We need and actually the Docker compose file used for Meshery. Right now, that compose file, like part of making this this update to the workflow, Lidor, would be that it's not just about producing a Docker container, an image, and tagging that image. Yes, that's what needs to happen here. But subsequent to that, we also are going to need to update tags inside of the Meshery YAML file, the Docker compose YAML file.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll need to make an update to Meshery CTL as well, so that we can enable users with control over switching between channels, should they want to. Ultimately, we want to expose that in the UI as well, the notion that they could go over and switch between release channels.
I see. Yeah, that was actually the second question that I wanted to ask. When a user will install a Meshery, we should like specify it for him stable latest, because by default probably it's latest.
Right. Yeah, and so to your point, like some projects, as you go to download the project initially, they'll have two different installer files, one for Edge, one for stable. And for us, we want to try to differentiate a little bit, have it be as simple as possible, have just one download, one installer like we do today. By default, it would be set to stable, and it would only be after someone is basically after someone is running Meshery that they would be able to switch to Edge. An advanced user would make that choice.
Okay, so Cool. So I will start with the image one, as you described there, and I will try to tackle all the fields that it can influence on, and I will, if I have a question also, I will mention it before.
Nice. Very good. Okay. Kush,
What about another thing I wanted to ask? I have here the release drafter. I didn't have a chance to look into it, so first I will check what we talk now, the release, before I will go for the release drafter, if it's fine. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. And this one's much less complex or pretty straightforward about just anytime. Yeah, and we'll talk. Yeah, like you said, we'll talk about it after your.
Okay.
But I know we're about at the top of time. Did anyone else on the call that had an item?
Lee, one item I have, I think we do not have much time to think about, but once, I think we put forward to the next meetup that look, if somebody uses like kind of a scaffold engine for Kubernetes that automatically building and deploying production, in continuously updating the deployment workflow. And enhances dev environment for a dev environment that's we can build or redeploy that images again and again, and some engines does for us. So kind of a Meshery, if somebody uses Meshery in the Kubernetes engine, it's accessible. It continues to him that he can use it or some kind of configuration, what their uses or what the approach he has. Kind of development environment.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep, that is a topic for another time.
Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough. Raj, Udit, anything that we didn't cover?
Not as such.
Okay, very good. No problem. I just want to make sure we didn't have you guys on and then ignored you or what, like good.
Lee, if we have some time, I have some question that you asked me to delete the Slack apps for the notification thing, but I tried to looking where I can delete the apps, but I didn't find some settings regarding that. I shared the screenshot of that with you in the chat, but I think you missed that.
Yeah, there's an item here that we're interfacing between Slack and GitHub Actions, and that's by way of notifying when someone stars the repo. And so there's been I think a kind of a point of confusion, probably just for me, on the use of like a legacy token to interface with Slack versus the use of this GitHub Action Slack app. The GitHub Action Slack app, I think, works a little bit better in that when you see the avatar of the user in Slack that sends the notification, the GitHub Action avatar is this, or that logo is this, which is great. The other one is like some generic application icon that has, I don't know if it says legacy on it or something, but so we were trying to switch over to just this, but I haven't.
Yeah, I can't see the delete button or settings somewhere in the Slack app. So that's what I wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
Like you asked me to delete the app, but I couldn't find that.
I'm a little bit lost, I think, as to I haven't spent enough time to.
Yeah, sure. I think you can take your time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you one thing that would be helpful in the meantime, though, is of the so Lidor and Shubham, of the Slack notification workflows that we have, I'm not sure how that is. Are those using a token, or are those using a Slack app to authenticate? And so I get this.
So what I remember that it is using that Slack channel ID, and it also using some tokens or something to verify the some environment or something.
Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, it does look like we're, huh. Okay. Cause, and the deal was, is as we create new repositories that we need to, we want to try to have the same set of workflows in each of the repos. And so setting this as an organizational level or as an org level secret so that it's available to all repos was essentially what I was looking to do. But then with the use of legacy tokens for Slack or API tokens, and then the use of the GitHub Actions Slack app, I guess I wasn't quite sure. We can go add this as an organizational level secret. And maybe that's all that we need to do to make sure that this workflow works across all repos. So I think one of the repositories, yeah, okay. Okay, I'll do that and message the channel. And then it would be good if Shubham, maybe if you could verify that. I think the Learn Layer 5 repo is probably one of those today that I don't think will notify on Star. So maybe we can use this as the test repo.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
One question, Lee. So, did we start some E2E like just for keeping sync? I'm just asking with just for staying tuned with the E2E changes we'll be having. So did we just, make some progress or something in E2E part so that we can accommodate?
Oh, on use of the Litmus Chaos GitHub action to sort of stand up kind and then do a deployment of a sample app.
Yeah, so that will be the part of like image hub.
Oh yeah,
is it?
Yeah. The image hub one is much smaller in size than something like the book info app. The image hub is I think right now only configured to work with on a console service mesh. Kush, were you recently looking at taking the image hub and making it available on other service meshes?
Yes, I was looking at the scope of making it available for every service mesh, like mainly HTTP.
Okay. I mean, right now, Udi, Image Hub will work if console is laid down.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a much smaller app. It would be probably easier to work with. There's one other app that is small. It doesn't really have a UI. Image Hub has a UI, which maybe that's nice, maybe that's not. But this Learn Layer 5 is something that we'll be integrating into the SMI Service Mesh Interface project as well. It's a small sample app that would work probably equally as well as Image Hub would.
Okay, so like it would be good to try with this.
Yeah. This one hasn't been built into the Meshery adapters just yet as a sample app, but that doesn't mean that it won't run on any of the service meshes.
Okay, we'll try with this and let's see. Update
Okay.
in the next center.
Thank you. Great. Perfect.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks everyone.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's probably a wrap. So I've got a few action items to follow up on. Lidor, I'm excited about stable channel. So.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Talk to you in a little while.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye guys.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.